Hello, everyone. We are going to go through the live demo or a demo of our new feature in USTEPS. This is the log note repository. Again, we had a live demo last week. The recording did not save as expected, and so I'm going to go through this again on this recording. And at the end of this recording, I'm going to go through some of the questions that were asked during the live demo and try to address those as well. And then after you view this demo, if you have other questions, please feel free to reach out to USTEPS and we will answer those questions for you. Okay, so getting started, this is our testing environment. Everything that we are doing in here is for testing purposes and for demonstration purposes. We'll go over the new log note repository, and then we'll also go over access to that repository, who will need access and who will not need, or who will need to complete a new form to request access and who will not need to request that form. Okay, so in USTEPS, one of the new features or new tab that we have is this SC admin tab. We'll be adding new content to this tab as we roll out new features within USTEPS that are applicable to support coordination. For the purpose of this demonstration, we're going to go over the log note repository, and we'll show you how to create a repository, create log notes within the repository, as well as how to use the log notes created when writing a log. So you can access a repository again under the SC admin log note repository. You'll be directed to our repository page. This will show you any repositories that you have created, and you'll be able to access previously created repositories here. You'll be able to search for those as well if you have a number of those. So what you'll do when you come to this page is you'll go to New to create a new repository. There's 3 sections within, well, 2 main sections. You'll see the repository overview and the repository definition. Within the definition, you'll see these 3 tabs that will kind of help guide you through the repository and what needs to be done to get your repository created. If you notice, once you create a new repository, nothing will show here other than your provider agency. The reason being is you first need to name the repository and give it a description and then save that repository. So we're going to call this repository okay. And for naming conventions, there's no restriction other than you want to be descriptive, have a good naming convention for your repositories, and then you can write whatever description in there that would be helpful for you and your users. Go ahead and save that. Now you will see that the log note repository information is here. You will be able to see a last used on once that has been used, and we'll go back here and we'll show you when that populates. I want to show you this access data option here. This will show you who has access to this repository. There are 3 main functionalities, and we'll discuss these 3 capabilities in just a few minutes. I just want to note, you'll see the demo support coordination name. You'll see your team, which is your company or agency, or if you're DSPD, you'll see your DSPD team here. And then the 3 capabilities, we have use, we have edit, and we have authorize. Use just allows your support coordinator to use the log note in the log note screen. This is any log note that you create in this repository can be used by whoever you assign that to, or allow to use that. The edit option allows somebody to come in and edit this repository. So whether it's rename it, whether it's add new categories, whether it's to change some language in the log note, create a new log note, create a new category, any edit options, that person would have those options if you select them to have that capability. And then authorize, we'll get into this in just a moment. Authorize allows the user to go in and authorize who has access to this repository. I just want you to note here on the access data, it is showing only myself right now. And I'll kind of explain why in a moment. Okay, so we are going to move down to our 3 categories here, or 3 tabs here. We have the log note repository item, we have the repository categories, and we have the repository access management. So what we're going to actually do is, if you notice here, so this will be the log note that you write, and then this will be the category that you choose. Every new repository is loaded with an other category. The other category is the only one that's preloaded. It's the only one that you cannot delete. So what you'll actually want to do in creating a repository is go in and create repository categories first. Okay. And this step is pretty simple. You can just name the category whatever you feel is appropriate. So if you have an admin category, or if you have a visit category, maybe it's a phone call, whatever you feel you'll want to have log notes created under, you can go ahead and create that category. Okay. So if you see within this category, you may have several. You can search those categories, you can sort, and then you also have a trash bin here. So if you no longer need that category, and if you want to keep your repository clean, you can go ahead and delete those. Again, the only one you cannot delete is other. Okay, so with having a few categories created, I'll go back to the log repository items tab, and now I can create a log. Yeah, I'm just gonna say whatever in the log, and I'm going to assign that log a category. So I'm going to categorize this one as admin, and I'm going to go ahead and save that category. Okay, so I'm going to create a couple logs. And just as some examples of how you might want to set up your logs. Okay. Okay. And I'm going to call this one visit. We'll save this one. Okay. And we'll call this one phone call. Okay. All right. So I have a few logs now in my category. Now there's no limit to how many logs you can create. There's no limit to how many categories you can create. So it's just however you feel like you want to structure things. I think it's important for you to take a moment and think about how you want to design things. Again, if you create a category that you realize you're not really going to use, you can always delete that. The same goes for a log note. If you create a log and you realize this isn't really hitting the mark of what I was hoping it would do, you could go ahead and delete that. So once I have my logs posted here and I have created my logs, one thing to note here is you can see that we have an option to add additional columns of data. And so I'm going to go ahead and allow all of these columns to show. I want to go through this. So the last used on would be the last time that log itself is used, not necessarily the repository. It is the last time that log is used. End date will show if you choose to end a log and delete that, and then you'll have a use count of how many times that particular log is being used. And we'll go through kind of some ideas of that we're having for report purposes where you can use this use count. Okay, so the show ended, this button here, if you have any logs that you have deleted, and you still want them to show, you would click the show ended. So an example of that is we're going to go ahead and use this action to end this log. Okay, so this is the phone call log. As I click on that, and the end date is still here, or the log is still here, the end date shows here. So this is when the log ended. The use count and last used on would still be populated. Okay. Now, if I were to leave this repository and come back into that repository, I'm going to expand both of these again. Okay, you can see that log no longer shows. It will show until I leave and it will do a refresh. Now, if I want to see that log, if I want to see all that have ended, and I click on show ended, it will show me that log again, and it will show those that are open as well. And then you can go and you can hide that log as needed. Okay, so we've created our repository. We've created a few categories here, and we've created a few logs. Now what we need to do is we need to decide who within our company has access to use this repository. Okay, so again, if you notice when I clicked on the access data, it is only showing myself under this access data, and that is because I'm the only person that has been selected to use, edit, or authorize anything within this repository. The creator of the repository will automatically be selected with all three of these categories. Okay. Under the repository access management tab, you will be able to go in and you'll be able to assign who in your company can have which capability within the repository. Okay. So if you would like to make sure that you have most or all of your staff to use the logs that you've created, you would select all of these. Okay. So I'm going to deselect a few to show you something here. Okay. All right. So as of right now, everybody with the check mark under use will be able to use our repository log notes. Now I'm going to say that I would like a few of my employees to be able to edit those log notes. This access here now allows them to go in here and edit some of these items. They could go in and they can delete, they can edit the name, and they can add new logs or new repository items. Okay. If you notice now, as I click my access data, now this is populating everybody that has access to this data. This is a quick way to see if somebody's saying that they don't have access to the log or they can't see the log. You can quickly look on this access data to see if they actually have the ability to use the logs that you have created. Okay. Not everybody was shown this list, only people that have one of these three capabilities selected. All right. And then again, the authorize capability. So if I allowed this user to authorize access, they would then have access to this tab. So only people that have authorized access would have access to this tab, and that allows them to, as it says, authorize who can use, edit, and then also authorize access to this repository. Okay. All right. We're going to jump back to this screen in just a moment. I just want to know one thing. If you are editing a category or a repository item, you can always click on that item within the data table, and then you can update this. So we're going to update this. Okay. We're going to go in, going to go here and, do whatever you want here. Save that, change the category if you have the wrong category. So just anything here you can select, and then you can make that change. Okay, going back here, one thing that's important to note is you will need to make sure you select save on your access management once you're done making the changes. And if you notice when you click on a box, you'll see the circle. That does not mean that this is automatically saved. So please make sure that you save any changes you've made to your access, or else they will not reflect once you leave this screen. Okay, I'm going to pause for a moment and we're going to talk about who has what role or who needs which role in USTEPS, a USTEPS access role, to be able to use, edit, and authorize. Okay, so for use, it's very easy. Anybody within your company that you assign can use the log notes. They do not need to have a special role. They won't need to send in a new form 0-2. With that being said, if you are the only person within your company that needs access to the repository and everybody else can just use the repository, you're the only person that needs to submit a new 0-2. Okay. If somebody is going to have either edit or authorize access, they will need to have a form 0-2. And what that basically will do is under the SE admin tab, if they have that updated access and USTEPS, this log note repository item will show under this tab. So if you have somebody here, so this person who just has use only, when they go to SE admin, they will not see this because they do not have that role within USTEPS. Okay, and they don't necessarily need that role. If they will never need to do anything with the long note repository, then there's no sense in spending time in submitting a new 0-2. If you realize down the road that somebody will need to have that access, let's say that now you're going to assign this person with edit access, you will need to submit a new 0-2 to us at USTEPS, and we will then review, and then if applicable, we will assign that USTEPS access, which will allow you to see this log note repository. Okay, with that being said, I'm going to skip over to the new access form. I know that these forms can be a bit of a hassle to keep filling out. So what we're going to do with these 0-2s is we have your current 0-2 already on file. What we're asking you to do is to complete this updated 0-2. You will need to complete this entire section. Please make sure you initial and you sign, have the owner sign, contract name, review the statement of understanding. This will look a little bit different from your other 0-2s. These functionalities are all the same as what's currently on your 0-2. These will not change, so please do not select anything in here. The only thing that you will select is you'll select the log note repository button object, okay? And then that's all that you have to do. And what we'll do as our USTEPS team is we will then replicate the rules that you already have and replicate the signatures to match your current 0-2. So this will basically be an amendment to your 0-2, and we'll have a 0-2 with all the updated functionalities. If you are making another change to the 0-2 for whatever reason, and you add something that's not currently there, then we will need to go through the process of getting administrative approval for those other functionalities. The log note repository does not need administrative approval to utilize. If you are the company owner and you're authorizing yourself, you'll have the access to that log note repository. And then if you are a support coordinator and you need access to that repository menu item, then your company owner is the only one that needs to authorize access to that, and we will then go ahead and assign that. On the email that was sent out, we attached this 0-2. Please fill out the top portion, like I said, and select only the log note repository. Please email that back to usteps@utah.gov. If you need that 0-2, it is available on our website under forms, and you can also email USTEPS and we can send you that 0-2. For state employees, you will need to fill out a 0-1. So if you're a DSPD employee, please fill out a 0-1, not a 0-2. And the log note repository checkbox will be there on that 0-1. The same, everything applies for you as well. You'll fill out the top section with the statement of understanding signed off, both you and your supervisor. Don't worry about filling in the roles or the functionalities that you currently have. We will replicate that on the 0-1, so we have an update with the log note repository. Any form questions, you can direct those to USTEPS. Okay. All right, so that's everything that we need as far as creating the log note repository. Now we're going to go in and we're going to actually use that log. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my home screen, and just as you create any log, you'll need to select the person in your case list, and as you go into the log note, okay, you'll create a new log. All right, now if you notice, we have the log note repository showing over here. Okay, so we're going to create a log. Create date is today. Okay, and we're going to call this one a face-to-face visit. Okay, so we'll just select the location. Okay. At this point, you can start typing your log. But if you're going to use one of these canned repository items, it's probably wise to select that first, as I'm sure the language is set up to be the initial language that you're using. You can start typing a log and then inserting the log note language from a repository, and you won't lose what you've previously been writing. But I'm imagining that most how these logs are set up is it's going to be set up from the language as if it's the beginning of the log note. So as I've selected my descriptive log information, I'm then going to go in and I will choose my repository. So any repositories you've created will show here. So we're going to click on that, and then you will see that the categories and the logs that were not deleted will show here. Okay. One thing to note is if you're going to, let's say we're going to use this one here, you're not going to be able to select the item under the category. You have to select it under the log note. So we're going to select that log note, and that language here is going to populate here. Okay, so it's just some helpful options. We put, person's name and date in brackets. You can go in once that log note has been added, and you can update those fields. You can update anything in here. You can delete the whole log if you choose. It doesn't really restrict what you do. Once I've added those, I can add additional text, whatever you need to do. And then the same thing would happen here if you could use the save and stay, save and exit, clear, search, and cancel. So we're going to save and exit. And then, sorry, I'm going to jump back to that. If you notice, I did have to select that twice. We are aware of a bug in the application where you do have to select that option twice. We are working on fixing that. And now you'll see that log is here. You'll also see that you will not lose logs that you have already created. The log note repository is just to allow some canned language to be accessible in the logs. So you will not lose any of the logs that you've previously created. The log note menu screen remains the same. Okay, now we're going to go back to that log note repository to review a few things. Okay, so the last used on has now been updated to 12/16/2024. And if we go into this log and we expand on these categories again, you will see that that use count has now been updated. Okay, so you can see we did not use this admin log, so there's nothing there to update, and we now have this use count on there. Going back to the log note main page, on the repository, you can click on the access and quickly, without going into the repository item, you can see who has access. This is a quick way for you to search. If somebody's saying they can't see the repository, they can't see that log note, this will be able to help you see if they have access or not. And then you can delete a repository. When you delete a repository, the items, the logs that you have written or that have been written with this repository will not be deleted. Okay, this just allows that this repository will no longer be able to be accessed. So the logs that have tapped in this will still be there. It just, we're assigning an end date to this repository and it will no longer show. Okay. And then we have created a log note report, a log note repository report. I'll show you what that looks like here, and then I'll let you know of the process of, or another report that's in process. Okay, so this repository report basically just has everything that's within that repository. It'll have the creation, all that information, the categories, and then it will show the log note items with a use count, and then you'll be able to see your access management as well. With any report, if you see items that you feel you would like to have added, something that may be missing or something that may be helpful, you can contact USTEPS and we can discuss that. And if that's a change, we'll put it on our report scheduled change. We are also going to be creating a report that will go in the report portal, and it is going to give you a use count of all of the logs that have been created. So currently now you'll see a use count. If you click this record and you go into that log, you'll see the use count here in this data table. The report will give us information that will show the log note, the category, and the repository, and then it will do a use count for both on the log note side as well as the repository side. It will also do a use count for the category side. That report is being developed and it should be ready within a few weeks. That report will be housed in our report portal under support coordination. Okay. All right, so that ends the demo for our log note repository. I just wanted to go through a few of the questions that were brought up, as you may have questions if you are viewing this for the first time. Okay, one question was, could you give us an example of some category types? So again, as we suggested, I think it's important that you kind of lay out some of what are some of the categories you think would be helpful for your company, things that are are used most often, and then basically that's how I would create my category types based off of that. The most generic categories, and then you can always get more detailed. The nice thing about this is you can add more categories. With the log note repository being created, you can always go back in and add more categories to that repository. Okay, so will SCE employees need the new Form 0-2 to create their own log note repository? Again, yes, they will need it if they're going to create the repository or have edit access. They will not need to fill out a new 0-2 if they are just going to be able to use the log notes created. Okay. Are company owners automatically authorized, or do they need the form as well? Company owners are not automatically authorized. They will need to complete the Form 0-2 and send it to USTEPS, and we will then get that new capability within USTEPS created for them. This training will be posted. I am not certain on where this will be posted. Sorry, not training, but a demo. But we will send out an email of where you can find that. Are there certain types of log entries that shouldn't be used and could be a problem with an audit? Understanding that we can also add additional information to set repository for specific details. We would just express kind of some caution in the language that you put in the log note. You'll want to kind of follow some of our HIPAA guidelines, but you will not want to include any personal information in any logs. Avoid any type of identifying information. We think that these logs shouldn't be specific to any one person, even if you see this person a lot, because that log can be used by other people. So there's always a risk of information being added. So that's our guidance, is to use caution and keep these logs generic. Is a repository required or just an option? This is completely optional. It is not required. The other questions were, and sorry, I guess the last question was, will we still have access to all the log notes? And I answered that before. Yes, you will have access to all the log notes. That brings us to the end of all of the questions that were asked in the live demo. Again, if you're viewing this for the first time, or if you have additional questions, please reach out to USTEPS, or you can reach out to myself, and we can help assist that. Please make sure that you send any of the updated 0-2 forms to the USTEPS email so that we can process those. Processing time for the 0-2s is probably going to be a little bit longer than normal, as we're going through many at this point. It still shouldn't take too long to get those processed, though. All right, well, thank you for your time.